On the night of June 11th, 2026, two things were happening at the Estadio Azteca simultaneously that together produced the single most complicated image day one of any World Cup has ever delivered. Inside, Shakira performed. Burna Boy performed. Salma Hayek welcomed the world. 80,824 people created a noise that the most historic stadium in the Americas had not heard since Maradona scored the goal of the century on the same pitch 40 years before. Outside, riot shields. Anti-government protesters clashing with police in scenes that were broadcast live to every television audience on Earth simultaneously. Yards from the stadium walls, under the same floodlights, on the same night. But the cameras do not only point at what FIFA plans for them to see. And what they found outside those walls, on day one of the biggest World Cup in history, was something nobody in FIFA's communications department had a press release prepared for. This is what actually happened on day one. All of it, not just the football. The protests outside the Azteca were not spontaneous. They were organized, documented, and announced in advance by groups that understood exactly what the World Cup's global media presence meant for their visibility. Thousands of teachers had traveled from across Mexico to Mexico City in the days before the opening match, setting up camps near the city's historic center and demanding better salaries and changes to pension laws. They did not come to disrupt football. They came because the world's cameras were there, and they had been waiting for a moment this large to make themselves heard. Alongside the teachers came the families. More than 1,000 relatives of people among Mexico's near 135,000 missing. Men, women, and children who vanished during decades of drug war violence, and whose cases have never been resolved, marched toward the Estadio Azteca carrying candles and photographs. One protester told reporters she was doing it for her daughter and for the 6,000 people missing in the city alone. Amnesty International had issued a statement days before the opening match specifically calling on Mexican authorities to protect these women and ensure their voices were heard. They marched anyway. They carried the photographs anyway. And on the night the world was supposed to be watching Shakira, some of those cameras found them instead. The fan zone in Zocalo Square, one of Mexico City's most iconic public spaces, hosting more than 50,000 people for the opening match screening, came within a decision of becoming a battleground. Authorities erected barriers around the entire area as the demonstrations approached. Crowd control broke down as thousands rushed the entrances simultaneously. Local officials announced the venue had reached full capacity and stopped letting people in, for a period that no official would put a precise time on afterward. Fans who had traveled to Mexico City specifically for this moment stood outside a fan zone. They could not enter while the opening ceremony played without them on the screens inside. And then there were the 14,000 seats. This is the detail that has received less coverage than the protests and deserves significantly more. When the Estadio Azteca was built in the 1960s, funding ran short during construction. The solution at the time was to sell boxes and grandstand seats to private individuals, who were contractually guaranteed the right to attend all events at the stadium until 2065 without paying any additional admission fees. The arrangement caused no significant problems at the 1970 World Cup. It caused problems at the 1986 World Cup when FIFA first tried to reclaim those seats for general sale and lost. Those private holders kept their rights. They were always going to be there in 2026. FIFA and stadium operator Alemany planned to include all 14,000 of those seats in FIFA's own ticketing inventory for this tournament. The holders took the matter to court. They won. Mexican courts ruled in their favor. The financial consequences for Alemany were reported to be approximately $54 million in compensation owed to FIFA for seats it had already promised and could no longer deliver. The response from FIFA and Alemany, according to reports in Mexican media, was to propose banning the private holders from bringing their own food and drinks into a stadium where this had always been permitted, and to offer paid hospitality packages priced between €6,116 and €13,010 instead. Mexican courts struck that down too, days before the opening match. Hundreds of those 14,000 holders were still waiting for their digital tickets to arrive. Their association's Secretary General warned publicly that if they were denied entry, they would ask the court to authorize the use of force to gain access. On the night of the opening match, those seats were occupied. The legal battle had been won. But the image of a World Cup opening ceremony, overshadowed by a decades-old contractual dispute that FIFA had tried to override and failed, is not the image the organization spent 2 years of promotional material building toward. Add England's boots. Stolen in Kansas City, Missouri during transportation from Florida. Match boots belonging to England's World Cup squad, taken from a team vehicle by their own delivery drivers less than a week before their first match. An arrest was made. The Guardian confirmed the theft and the arrest. Sports Illustrated described England's preparations thrown into chaos in bizarre circumstances. The boots were recovered, but the story, England's players preparing for a World Cup on foreign soil, having their match equipment stolen by the people transporting it, landed on every football news platform on Earth within hours. This is what day one of the 2026 FIFA World Cup produced. A riot outside the opening ceremony. A fan zone that nearly collapsed under the weight of its own crowd. 14,000 seat holders who spent years in court to stop FIFA taking what was contractually theirs. Families of 135,000 missing people carrying candles in the shadow of the Estadio Azteca. And England's boots, somewhere in Kansas City, in the hands of the wrong people. Each of those things happened independently. None of them were connected to each other. None of them were planned to coincide. They did not coordinate, did not communicate, did not arrive as part of any organized campaign against this tournament or the institution running it. They simply happened, on the same day in the same hours, across 3 countries simultaneously, because the 2026 World Cup is not taking place in a vacuum. It is taking place in a world that has been building toward this moment for years, carrying everything that world contains alongside football. The football when it started was extraordinary. Mexico beat South Africa with drama and noise and 80,000 people who had waited their entire lives for that moment. The Azteca delivered everything it always delivers. That matters. It genuinely matters. Because the football is real and the players are real, and the moments this tournament will produce over the next 6 weeks will be real in ways that no controversy, no legal dispute, and no stolen equipment van can diminish. But day one was not just football, and the cameras did not just show the football, and the world did not just see football. What they saw was a tournament that had promised to be the greatest celebration in the history of the sport, and delivered, on its very first day, something far more complicated, far more human, and far more honest than any opening ceremony was ever designed to contain. What do you think? Was day one of this World Cup the most chaotic opening day in the tournament's history? Or is this simply what happens when the biggest sporting event on Earth arrives in a world that refuses to pause its real problems for 90 minutes? Leave it in the comments. These conversations are the ones worth having.